Jim, I'm here with one of our Crossroads interns, Akim Burke. Akim, we're going to talk to you in just a minute, but first we want to take a look at the first report you've done for us. Here's a little bit about it. We're talking about Christian hip-hop, and it might surprise you to know that it's become an alternative form of worship for many. Role Model Records is a Toronto-based record label that has begun to make its place in the industry. We'll follow its president through his journey from the streets to spreading the gospel through hip-hop.
Ready? For Julian Hyacinth and Shola Agunbiten, hip-hop music is a way of life. But Shola found himself on the wrong side of the law. Growing up in one of the GTA's rougher neighborhoods of Malton, Ontario, Shola was a young man without direction and a dim outlook.
Life before Christ, man, I was without hope at all. You know, to put it in a nutshell, pretty much, I was that dude you didn't want your son to be around, or your daughter to be around or involved with, because nothing good came out of me, you know. My surroundings wasn't good. I grew up in a place called Malton. You know, the neighborhood was filled with promiscuity, drug activity, gang violence, all those types of things. Yeah.
As part of a gang crew, Shola always had to be on guard for members from other crews trying to take his life.
I remember there was one time, you know, I went to the convenience store with my girlfriend at the time, and we were in some heated beef with some other dudes from like another neighborhood, and that caused activity and a lot of, you know, hate from even people in our own hood. So I went to the grocery store, as I was saying, and I went to go buy something from my mom, and when we came out, a group of these guys who were from my neighborhood actually decided to try and you know, try and rush me, is the street slang that we used to use. So, you know, they came up, attacked me. It was like about 10 guys, but 2 guys were the ones actually putting on the hurt and whatnot.
Shola says his life was like a drug for him and his friends. However, he had a sobering encounter as he found out the effect his crew was having on the younger members of his community.
This lifestyle was like intoxicating. We had the women, we had the cars, we had the new clothes. So everybody just wanted to be around us. You know, one dude that was in my neighborhood, he came up to me one day and said to me something that shocked me and actually even scared me, that we were like gods in our community. You know, people looked up to us, and that was a scary thing, because you shouldn't be looking up to people who are not doing the right thing.
Even though his crew knew how significant their impact was on their community, the boundaries became blurred as the situation got worse.
And we're in deep, and we're loving it, and to the point that even when beef got hot, we would go to church for somebody's funeral, and we'd go strapped up with guns and stuff, because nowhere was safe for us. It was that kind of problems that we were in. It was either kill or be killed kind of situation.
But it was a game of basketball that proved to be a near fatal turning point.
There's about 3 of my friends, and about, you ever seen that movie 300? Yeah, where the other army swarms on this small army. Kid you no lie, it was like that. You know, I wasn't there, but from what I heard, it was like that. So my friend, he was fighting his way out of the gym where they're playing ball, and he got stabbed to the point that it went through his back and punctured his lungs, and he almost died.
After a near-death experience for Shola's friend, retaliation and hate were the first things that came to mind. However, after his friend came out of the hospital, he made a statement that stirred something in Shola's life.
This same guy who got stabbed, who almost died, you know, he started talking about we're all going to be judged for everything that we've done in our lifetime. You know, that what we're doing here on earth is not right, so why are we going to stand before God by ourselves, secluded from everybody, no friends around, and be turned away and enter in this eternal hell, eternal pit fire.
This conversation stuck with Shola for a very long time and triggered him to get in contact with his mother about a retreat her church was having. He wanted a change for his life, permanently.
Going to this encounter and actually seeing for myself that God is real through the change he did in other people, through the change he did in me. You know, I was a dude, I was somewhat of a hothead, you know, at times. So I got delivered from that spirit at this encounter, man, and that's really what turned me around, you know, from what I was living and who I was.
The images of hip-hop and Christianity may not go together in the same sentence. However,
This has become the new way to praise and to spread the good news. Shola Agunbitan and his record company, Role Model Records, have discovered a way to bridge the gap between sharing the good news and the music he loves. After having an encounter with God, the Christian hip-hop company Role Model Records was born. Shola, being the president and CEO, says God showed him there was a need to fill a burden he placed on his heart.
Role Model Records was created pretty much because, it came out of that, and through a lot of prayer, the Lord showed me that role models is what we need, what the young people need. They need people to look up to. Music is a part of everybody's life.
And he wants Role Model Records to be a ministry, not just a record label.
First and foremost, we see it as a ministry. We're seeing it as God giving us our gifts. We're using our gifts to go out into the world to let people know about Christ. That's the ministry part of it.
By the grace of God, we going all out.
Role Model Records has signed 3 artists, a producer, DJ, and videographer, and has worked with names such as Lecrae, Tripoli, and Flame, all big names in gospel hip-hop. And the label's newest artist, Julian Hyacinth, says he didn't join Role Model Records for a record deal, but for the family atmosphere.
I grew up, fatherless child, and brother and my sister were there, but I never had that, straight connection with them. So when I met Shola and when I met Spoken, it was that brother connection, kind of like God just kind of recreating it again. So for me, it was like, what I didn't get to have as a child, I'm now getting to have becoming a man. And I look up to Shola as my big brother.
And ultimately, Shola wants his music and his business to be about what it has done for God, not just the music it makes.
Our ultimate goal is not just to be successful, but significant. Significance outlasts success, because success is for right now. And we want people to say that we gave everything that we had for Christ. Like Christ said when he was on the cross, we want to be able to say that it is finished, when we leave. And after we go, it's going to just continue with anybody else that has been influenced with our music. It's going to help in their life to help other people's lives as well. We want to create that domino effect.
In Moulton, Ontario, Akim Burke, 100 Huntley Street.
That was good.
That was an amazing job for your first report.
Thank you.
You should be so proud of yourself.
I try to be sometimes.
And this internship, it's not just, like getting coffee, I mentioned at the top of the show, but you actually got to do television.
I did get to do television, and I was trained more so in radio, so being able to do some television stuff, it adds to the repertoire a little bit, yeah.
And this is a topic, you always do your best work when you actually care about the topic. You really care about hip-hop and its ability to reach a younger generation.
Yeah, because the thing is about music is a part of everyone's life. And especially for myself as a younger person and the youth that I've grown up around, hip-hop really has a significant part in everyone's life. So especially the messages that are in it actually translate into the communities that we're actually in.
And yeah, and a lot of hip-hop culture isn't very positive toward women, violence, a lot of different things. So
yeah.
That's amazing. And what I thought fascinating, we had a little conversation. Shola's a friend of yours, and his life started turning around because of a friend almost dying.
Yes.
And you had a similar experience. You were brought up in the church, didn't really get into it that much. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I didn't really get into it too much, It's just kind of got familiar with the tradition of the religion in a sense. And then a few years after I had started going to this new church where I presently am at right now, a friend of mine passed away. And after that, it kind of shut down a bit. For about 2 or 3 years in middle school, I just didn't really talk. I didn't really do too much. Kind of like my whole personality was kind of cold.
And what was going on inside of you that caused that?
Just a lot of stuff, just everything from being angry with God. It's like it didn't really register to me that like a best friend of mine wasn't going to be there the next day. So it was kind of like a struggle to kind of understand that. Yeah.
And you mentioned that a lot of people that you know had a similar kind of experience with loss.
Yeah, a lot of people I've known, pretty much almost every friend that I've had has experienced that in some way, shape, or form, whether a family member or just a very close friend. And the effects of that loss can, if you don't catch it properly, it can either throw you down a negative path or lead you back to God.
And so how did you come back to God? Because obviously you're here, so you probably don't hate him anymore.
That is true. That is very true. With that, after that kind of 2-year hiatus or whatnot, my mother actually sent me to this youth retreat where I was there with like Shola and a lot of other guys, part of my youth leadership team now. And from then on, it just kind of, God became real to me as a person. I knew the idea of what God was or who God was, but I didn't know who he was in relation to me. You know, people say like, I'm a friend of God, he's like your best friend, right? But to me, it didn't register, right? But after that retreat, that weekend, I was able to then understand that, yeah, God's kind of real.
And you know what I love about your story? You said that your mom forced you to go to church, you know, and you hated it. But it's interesting, maybe encouragement to parents out there that, you know, eventually it could take, right? It did for you.
It did take for me, it did take a while, but at the same time, at the end of the day, the choice is ultimately yours, right? God gives us free will. And the thing about it is that I made a choice to figure out who God was for me, right? And if you don't make that decision, right, then you'll still kind of always be you won't know, right? So I was happy that I was able to make that decision, and here I am today.
Look at you. And you've done amazing work here. You're here for 4 months. You've brought so much value to us. We only have a minute left, but just tell me what the value that the Crossroads program has brought to your life, because we know what you've given us, that amazing report and so much other work.
Well, not just an opportunity to be on national television, right? But also the opportunity to kind of get used to a work environment, being able to understand how everything works in not just a media sense, but in a person-to-person sense, being able to understand this is a community as well as a work environment, yeah.
And just quickly, if someone wanted to come here and be part of it, what advice would you give them?
Apply as soon as possible and be ready to work. That's the best advice I could ever give.
We work people hard. It's a good thing though, right? You gotta have a good work ethic. So if you're interested, we need more interns for September. There's great opportunities coming up. Here's the page if you want to apply and be part of Equipping for Excellence. It's so much more. There's leadership training, and as well as the technical and the actual aspects of doing television. There's character training. Go to crossroads.ca and find out more. So just stay tuned now. There is more amazing, phenomenal content coming up. Stay tuned.